Welcome to the Entrepreneurial CEO Podcast, where we dive into the real stories behind building and scaling a business. Each episode, we sit down with CEOs, founders, and leaders to uncover hard-won lessons in leadership, systems, and team building. Listen in each week to learn directly from real business leaders who have been in your shoes, had success, made the mistakes, and all of the messiness that comes with building a business. If you're ready to learn from real-world leaders and gain insights you can apply today, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Steve, thanks for being here, man.
Pleasure.
All right, well, everybody, today's guest is Steve Distante, chairman and founder of Vanderbilt Financial Group, longtime MAP client, the impact-focused wealth management firm, recognized 5 years running as a best place to work on Long Island, and a MAP Presidential Award winner, which is an esteemed award. Very difficult to get. Steve is a St. John's grad turned entrepreneur, very passionate entrepreneur, and we'll talk about that. He's grown Vanderbilt into a leader in their space, driven by a culture of grit, which is GRITT, gratitude, respect, innovation, teamwork, and trustworthiness. Very excited to talk with you, Steve. Thanks so much for being here, man.
Thank you. Andrew, I have to make a correction. I'm not a St. John's grad turned entrepreneur, and I'm an entrepreneur turned St. John's grad.
Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough. That's right, because you were an entrepreneur when you were six.
6 years old.
Crazy.
So,
that's right.
Yeah, I only went to St. John's because it was kind of, my dad's desire to have us have college education. And I met a professor that said, accounting is the language of all business. And that's what turned me on to accounting. I didn't love accounting. All I knew was I was good at math. I was good at numbers. And to this day, it serves me so well when I'm analyzing things and looking at the tax ramifications of things. That's it wasn't my desire to go to school for accounting by any stretch of the imagination. It was just to learn how to be a better entrepreneur.
Okay. And that's so important. We've had other people on the show which say, their number one takeaway is just know your numbers. Right?
Yeah. Most
really
people don't.
Pay attention to your numbers.
Yeah.
So maybe to start, Steve, can you just describe Vanderbilt Financial Group? What do you guys do, your mission, and what sets you apart?
So we're an investment firm. So I've got 3 broker-dealers and 2 RIAs. We got about $10 billion that we manage, about 300 advisors. We've been growing year over year significantly. We had a 54% growth in probably the last 3 or 4 years. We're currently in the process of doing an ESOP transaction, an employee stock ownership transaction, which MAP was prior to Mr. Cato purchasing the company. So our sage and influencer in that was Lee Frostheiser. But our firm has about 302 financial advisors right now. They come to us because we have our blue ocean in what we do. We do it differently. We don't dictate to our advisors. They can have their own way of doing things. We have a very attractive offering in that we have front stage and backstage. Our front stage is our people here in the U.S., and in the backstage, we have a BPO, or business processing organization in the Philippines. So overnight, all the work gets done, and we create concierge services for those financial advisors so they can have their paperwork done and everything kind of flows straight through. My primary focus as founder, chairman of the organization, is just to keep things moving forward. And moving forward in data science and knowing our numbers, but also knowing our clients extremely well. And AI, how to apply AI to our industry in a very big way. I have a clone. I have my first book is called Pitchology, The Art and Science of Raising Capital. And so I have a clone called Ask the Pitchologist. And I can have people, because I talk to a lot of university students, entrepreneurs, and so on. And I say, unfortunately, I get very disappointed in myself that I can't respond to each and every one of their questions. But I say, please talk to my clone. And I'm sincere about it because we've put in probably about 2,000 plus hours worth of content between my podcasts, my books, for them to really get an idea of how to be a better entrepreneur, how to get funding for their companies, how to extract capital from their companies, that sort of thing. So, it's not if, it's when AI is going to be in every single one of our lives. And I've been on this journey for about 5 years now. I have a coach, a guy named Peter Diamandis, and Peter helps keep me in the future. So I'm always future oriented. And as founder and chairman of the company, it's where I live and where I should be instead of doing the day to day.
That's amazing. So it sounds like you have a coach that helps you with technology, innovation, adoption, AI, and really like pushing the forefront.
Yeah, well, it keeps me abreast of what's going on in the world. Like Starlink, I got to meet the president of Starlink
Mhm.
4 years ago, which I bought a farm about 4 years ago in the middle of rural Georgia, 400-acre farm. And I couldn't have lived there with the technology that they had. They had these satellites that if I brought a group down to come do an entrepreneur retreat or so, I couldn't even jump on a Zoom or anything anymore because they throttled back my internet access. Now, we're able to utilize that technology. And it was that along with my knowledge. So that inspired me to buy the farm in the middle of nowhere during COVID, right? So he keeps me posted on a lot of things, gives me updates, introductions to people, and that, I didn't even know certain things were going on in the world of longevity, electric cars, space travel, all those kind of cool things. So my brain lives in the future, and the AI and data analytics were something that were foreign to me, but I knew it was really important. So I jumped in, all in order to learn as much as I can. And now I apply it and I teach it to people as well.
I love that. But I see that common thread because you have that person that's helping you with um, learning new things with technology and AI and innovation. But then you also have Lee as your senior consultant who's helping you with the business side, with the map management system, and et cetera, et cetera. So have you always been that way where you're looking to external forces to help you? Or, is that something you learned over time as an entrepreneur and CEO?
That's a great question. Um, Andrew, my next book is going to be called Who Hunter. It's already kind of laid out there, but it's finding the right who's in your life. And I just realized, when I came up with the idea of this book, that good entrepreneurs are always who hunting, looking for people who can better them, and whose natural abilities are the things that you're not really great at. Because, as entrepreneurs, we don't need to have the resources. We need to be resourceful. And so Lee, as a who for me, came when I was at EMP with EO, the Entrepreneurial Masters Program up at MIT. I met him there. Um, and I quickly found myself in a crisis. Um, we had a beach house at the time that was close to Boston, the Boston area. I'd taken the ferry over the end of Long Island, and my wife was crying about how our president was telling her that we had to fire a bunch of people, ran out of money, and blah, blah, blah. Lee volunteered to coach me during that critical time. Fast forward a few years, I told you I met Lee in 2016. No, it was more like 2012. Um, Found out my president had stolen over $1.5 million from me. No wonder I was running out of money. He was putting it all out the back door. Um, so Lee has been incredibly valuable, and probably the greatest value that Lee shared with me, which is what I find to be deficient in most entrepreneurial businesses, is how to create a team, how to actually create an accountable team, a team that does what they say they're going to do. And this creates a framework for accountability and moving I like to say it's everybody's, like a crew boat. We all have our oars in the water. We're rowing the same way. And Lee is a master at doing that. And he does it, he's from the Midwest, and he's got such a kind way about him. He can ask the difficult questions sometimes. Uh, I've gotten a lot better at it. I like to run into burning fires now because I don't want to have any, avoidance or confrontation, avoidance of confrontation on things. But that's what I've learned from Lee over the years. And then knowing the numbers, right? Our vital factors, not our trivial many, which is, a lot of times we get stuck in minutia and people take you away from the most important things that you should be looking at. And Lee has mastered our team's abilities to be able to be focused on the right things versus going into those trivial many all the time.
Yes, as we shared when we were talking before the call, I worked with Lee through a prior business too, and yeah, he's got such a great way of asking the right questions at the right time and digging without it coming across in a really negative or I don't know. He just has such a great way of his demeanor and asking questions in the right way and framing it. It just leads to such awesome meetings and breaking through and really problem solving.
Yeah, and sometimes they're painful.
Yeah.
There's what was the Harvard paper he said? There was a Harvard paper that was all about um, accountability and the levels of a team. I think it was forming, norming, storming, and norming, and performing.
Yep.
And I feel like we're at the performing stage now. And that took a long time to get to. I don't feel like we've mastered pushing it down throughout the organization the way I could and should and will in the future. But my team is just clicking. It's amazing. It's almost like we just did a MAP meeting last week, or a VFT meeting, and I had an outsider in there who's joining our ESOP board, and it's a symphony. I'm kind of just orchestrating, asking, and putting my questions or ideas into it, and it's I'm now trying to reestablish that in my farm. I'm working on a nursery that I'm putting together for veterans to learn chicken farming and agriculture. Um, and, I just look at this business as our model for that. And the beautiful part is creating the team that works, not the entrepreneur that works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you can only go so far by yourself. You need to have a great team. And I agree, when you get to that point where you have a business that's doing well, you get a team that you can trust that's really performing, and you're in those meetings, it's just so fun. That's what's really fun. It really is.
Without a doubt, we were laughing and having fun. And there was, some people would put their defenses on during the meetings, and that's just because they weren't being accountable. They weren't being truthful. They weren't, they were embarrassed, basically. And the reality is it kind of it outs everybody when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So how long have you been a MAP client? It's been since 2012 or 2016?
I think it's 2012, quite honestly. It's been quite a long time. And there's a lot of, I guess, repeats of that or clones, so to speak. You got all these other places like EOS. I know Gino, who's created EOS, and
Yep.
Vern with Rockefeller Habits, and whatever else he's doing right now. But this is the original. This is the one that started it all, in my opinion. And just knowing that, it resonates with me. All the other platforms, actually, one of them they kind of pitted us against each other. Nobody had the ability to even ideate around any of the conversation that was happening. It was just very rushed. And I find that the MAP process is very collaborative, but it allows you to not be stuck in a box when you're talking about your numbers or so, and not be defensive about it, and talk from a higher level on what's important. I like to describe when I first started with MAP, it's as if I was flying an airplane and I had sunglasses on at night. I didn't know what the hell was going on, and I didn't know what was important. And then we started creating all these vital factors because, as we describe, I at least describe the MAP process, they say it's like you're a pilot. And if I gave you Post-its to put on the entire, instrument panel, and you could only use 3, 4, 5 of them, could you fly? And the answer is yes. I happen to be a pilot. And the answer is yes. And then when things start to go wrong, then you can start pulling a couple others off in order to dive deeper into those areas that aren't performing or aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. It can help you get out of a tailspin pretty quickly. It can help you really closely monitor what's going on. I'll never forget when Lee introduced me to Mike Cato, and it was during my crisis. And in my crisis, it was where the business had gone down quickly. I think it was 2012. So business had gone down overnight. We had all those banking issues and so on. And overnight, I had lost like 40% of our business. All my receivables were out the door. I mean, this is millions and millions of dollars out the door. And I had to quickly respond. And I remember what Cato told me. He goes, when you face a crisis, he says, because I've done this before, you've got to cut quick and cut deep. He says, the last thing you want to do is start cutting one person a week or so, because then your A players start putting out their resume and they want to know that you're in control and you're being proactive. And so we did that in a very meaningful way. And we came out of it, I'm not going to say unscathed, but with a plan. And that plan worked. And then we faced our next crisis. And come on, we're entrepreneurs. I never feel more alive than when I'm facing a crisis. When we faced our next crisis, I'm like a crisis hound. I'm looking for a crisis, right? I was able to come out of that tailspin with a plan and a team that held me accountable for what I was supposed to be doing to make it happen. So, Lee is just such a sage when it comes to these things in order to understand and really be a partner along the way.
Hi, if you're a CEO out there who's struggling with focus for your company, aligning your team, accountability, if you're struggling with execution, connecting the dots from where you're at to where you want to be, we've got a great program for you here at MAP. My name is Michael Cato. I'm the CEO. Most importantly, I was a client for 15 years, sold my company to a public company, and then bought MAP so that we can help other entrepreneurs with this specific problem. We're a 60-year-old company. We've worked with 170,000 individual executives and CEOs. We've worked with 15,000 organizations. This is what we do. Click the link below to learn a little bit more about how people just like you, CEOs, have transformed their business and ultimately transformed their life by running through the MAP system.
That's amazing. So is that what led you to MAP in the beginning, or were you already with MAP during those crises?
So when I met up at MIT during EMP, the Entrepreneurial Master's Program through EO, Lee was just a friendly face, and I just liked the guy. And that's when I came home to a crying wife at the beach house telling me we'd have to fire everybody or many people from this person. And I reached out to Lee and said, Lee, I got a challenge. And immediately he jumped in with me. We put a team together. And it was funny because there was only one person left from two people left from that original team, our president and CEO. And we brought in people to be part of the teams. Our president was at that time, I think, director of operations or so. And I brought in my chief compliance officer who had passed away, unfortunately. And they said, man, we thought everything was great. Everybody thinks the entrepreneur is wealthy beyond belief, always making money. They had no clue that we were losing money hand over fist and we were in survival mode. Everybody looks at us like, us entrepreneurs as we got it made. They don't know what we go through in order to, survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's pretty common that people don't know what the CEO does. Well, they're like, oh, he's not really doing anything. We're doing all the work. They don't really understand.
They have no idea the stress we go through. They no idea I mean, I know that I can borrow from my kids' college savings plan. I know I can take my money out of my IRA for 60 days and not get hit with a penalty. I know that, like all those things, last thing you want to do is not make payroll. Fortunately, I don't have any of those problems anymore, but years ago, I mean, that's what we go through, and you never know when a crisis is going to hit. But I built in lots of cushions along the way that now help me to not ever have to do that again.
It's a good feeling and a testament to the business you built. Can you walk us through how you work with MAP today? Like, what are the different services you use?
So primarily, I work with Lee on our monthly meetings. We keep him posted. But most recently, I've been Lee had inspired us to contemplate an ESOP plan. And Lee's actually going to sit on our board of our ESOP. And man, again, I love to learn new things. I wrote about it in my first book, Pitchology, about the ESOP transaction. But then I've learned there's like 3 or 4 different varieties. And I am just blown away that people don't know what I know. But the reality is it took me years to figure out, where some of the blind spots are not to be taken advantage of. And quite honestly, I want to be a hero to entrepreneurs, to help them scale and grow and not get taken advantage of. And so Lee is, absolutely one of the sounding boards we use throughout the process to make sure that we're doing the right things. We're holding our people accountable, especially when challenging things happen. You got to get rid of your best friend and, president of the company at the time for having stolen money. Well, Lee knew all about it. And, we were, just walking on eggshells throughout the process in order to make that happen. I mean, you can't get anything more intimate than that. And Lee is there to be able to get you through the rough times, but also when you start hitting the good times, identifying those good times, and then how to see around corners. Like, what could you possibly not, be thinking of right now? I just had an example of that happen where there was an industry sweep for a particular revenue item that we have. And I was talking to Lee about it. I was like, what could I do? What could I do? And he says, well, maybe you should get a legal opinion on it. And I said, that's a great idea. I ended up going to an attorney, got a legal opinion before it was even an issue. And then 3 years later, they do an industry sweep. I have the friggin' playbook.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like being able to just use his vast industries knowledge. And I mean, business is business. They're not any different. It starts with the crazy entrepreneur, right? We chase shiny things. We kick beehives for the fun of it, right? We start little fires here and there, which is why I'm president and chairman and chairman and founder, not president or CEO, because I know that's not my highest and best use inside the business. So Lee is very much understanding about the entrepreneurial prototype for us to be able to mess things up when we're bored and keep us moving forward in a positive way, where we do an annual plan, and that annual plan is then brought up in each meeting to make sure that everybody's keeping track of what they're supposed to, what those important things are that we put on there, and we all buy in, right? So you've got 3 different pillars of MAP, and one of which is, being able to talk to your team and get their ideas, right? And get buy-in because everybody's heard. And it's, nobody's as smart as everybody is one of the lines we use. And so we do that. We do that on a regular basis. We talk to each other. I tell them, I'm going to come up with this crazy idea. What do you think? A lot of times it gets knocked out. Not now. It's not really a big part of what we're doing right now. And that's when I get my research and development team involved, because I'll be working on that as a side project to release some of my energy in a positive way. And then when it's relevant, we bring it to the table and make things happen. But Lee keeps us on track. Lee has helped us form a powerful team. And now going through this ESOP process, wow, anybody that doesn't know about these things is missing out. And that's going to be my fifth book, is all about the ESOP journey that I've gone through.
I think that's amazing talking about it. And it's funny, my prior business partner always called me Captain No, because I was that guy where he'd always have the ideas. I'm like, look, we've got our plan. We've got our plan. We can't be distracting the team. We got to we'll add it to the list, but we'll come back to it later. I find it having that partnership where, those ideas are so valuable, but, it sounds like Lee helps you stay aligned, right? Help you stick to the plan.
Well, there's a book called Exponential Organizations by a guy named Salim Ismail. And I've interviewed Salim in my books, in one of my books. And he says that a good organization will have an immunity to our crazy. And which means they're doing what they need to do to keep the business going and not allow you to take them off track. And Lee is also very much that. He keeps us on track, and I can do my crazy stuff that I'm doing on the side and later on implement it within the business, like creating my own clone. My clone is for my book and for entrepreneurs. So you can ask the pitchologist and go to my website, pitchology.ai, and meet my clone, talk with my clone, ask for a pitch or some ideas inside of business. But man, that's not germane to our core business, which is financial services. But I've now used that. I'm creating a clone that's going to help detect cognitive impairment in clients, because it's like we have a target on our backs in the industry. I'm going to just give it to the industry. I'm creating a clone that's going to sit in on advisor meetings, fill out paperwork, take notes, and then advise throughout the process, because it's very usable and helps save an awful lot of time. And most people don't know even how to create a clone that looks and speaks just like me, but I do. And now I'm applying it to our industry in a very meaningful way.
That is really, really cool. That is very cool. And yeah, it feels to me like, Google was famous for like the 20% project, right? Where like they had people working 20% of the time on whatever they wanted, or you have these skunk work projects. But when you find something valuable, then you can weave it back into the core business. I think
right.
that's great, right? So we talked a lot about Lee and how he's helped you. How has MAP changed you as a leader, or how is it changed how you train the next level of leadership within your company, within Vanderbilt? Are you using the workshops?
And we do send people to workshops for sure, because it helps them see their blind side, right? You walk into the workshop. Well, what happens in the workshop stays in the workshop, right? But the reality is, we don't know how we come off to other people. We don't know how we interact. We don't know. And in being in the workshop, usually you're there alone without your team. That's at least that's the way we did it. We sent people kind of one at a time, where they had that unique experience in order to understand truly what MAP is, because it's trying to describe an elephant to a blind person, right? Well, it's really big and it's gray. What's gray? And MAP is a really big beast. But when you go through the workshop, you can put it all in context. You can really understand what the benefits are. And I mean, there's some big companies. We're a medium-sized company at this point, but there are some big companies. I think Trader Joe's was in mine. Maybe Chase was in mine. I mean, there were some like big players that were in there with their people learning the MAP process. So those workshops are invaluable to get people baptized, as we like to say.
Mm-hmm. That is very true. It is hard to describe MAP unless you experience it. I couldn't agree more. And what about your internal culture? You mentioned that it sounds like you won the presidential award. Why do you think you won the presidential award? Let me start there. What have you done to drive the MAP adoption within Vanderbilt?
We're performing, right? So things are happening now in a way they've never had, and it's just momentum. And we're very focused on culture. So culture for us is key. And it's helped us identify that culture. And our acronym is GRIT: gratitude, respect, innovation, teamwork, and trustworthiness. And those are the values that we hold dear. And we realize that when the relationship isn't working, it's usually one of those ingredients, one of those acronym letters is missing, or multiples are. And it makes it really easy to figure out why that person is not aligned with the values of what the company is. It's just very much part of our DNA. And, they have a saying, which is the fish stinks from the head down. And, and culture is king. And if you're going to build a business, why the heck are you going to build it with people who you just can't stand? I was describing this to somebody a little earlier yesterday, that ABCD employee. The A is they're performing and they're a cultural alignment. The B is they're a cultural alignment, but they're just not performing, but they're coachable. The D is they don't have the culture and they're not performing. C is the most dangerous person, the kamikaze of your organization. They are pumping out their work maybe twice as much as everybody else, but they're a cultural misalignment. We call those the kamikaze of the organization. Those are the dark clouds that you can't justify getting rid of. But in that world, you certainly can.
Yeah, we always call them the onboard terrorists.
That's exactly right. Yes.
It's tough. It's tough. We've had to get rid of them too. I mean, I remember two specific instances where, man, it was one of our top sales guys. He was killing it, but he was just a nightmare internally. He was killing the culture. And finally we had to let him go. It was tough, bringing in a lot of revenue, but man, you're just going to bring the whole company down. Can't do it.
We fired a guy just like that. And he goes, "You're firing me? Really?" And I remember, I think he had some conversation with Lee about how he was going to take over the company and do this, that, and the other thing. I was like, oh my God. So you had two people you had to let go?
We did. Yeah. That's because you can't allow it to impact the entire company. You just can't.
It's a cancer.
It's an internal cancer. That's exactly right. Yep.
But you can't justify it because they're performing.
Yep. Well, and that's hard, right? Because then you're looking at the numbers and man, this guy's bringing in a couple $1 million per year.
It's going to hurt. Yeah, it's going to hurt. But
it's going to hurt.
Yeah. The fact that people are suddenly respecting the fact that you care about them enough not to put them through the pain of what these curmudgeons are doing to your culture is, it's powerful.
It's just a short-term view versus a long-term view, right? And on a long-term plane, it's just the best thing for the company. But it's hard. It's painful. Yeah. Well, let's say, you're talking to an entrepreneur tomorrow. He's maybe where you were before and considering what to do. What would you tell him if he was looking at MAP or evaluating MAP and undecided?
Invest in yourself and consider MAP as your internal board with a sage and a system that works that's been proven since I think it's 1965, which is almost 60 years ago. And create a team that works. This is going to give you the roadmap to creating a team and being able to monitor in a very meaningful way, looking at the vital factors and being able to forecast out any potential challenges you might be having and to be able to take advantage of opportunities, but do it in a way that everybody agrees, everybody feels like they're part of that decision versus you just doing things and constantly getting pushback or disappointment or so. Because, as entrepreneurs, we think we have the best ideas in the world. Everybody's got to write in purple crayon. Isn't that a great idea? Let's get some purple crayons. And they're like, Steve, that's not a great, and nobody's willing to talk to us sometimes as entrepreneurs. They're afraid they're going to offend us because sometimes emotionally we're a little charged with our opinions. But MAP helps create some rationalization of how we do what we do and keeps us clear on the mission and path of what it is we're looking to do. Because at the end of the day, what are we looking to do? We're looking to create a business that creates value for ourselves, our team, the people we work with, and MAP makes sure that is front and center of what it is, because nobody goes into a business to become not-for-profit, right? And I don't mean in the sense of, creating a not-for-profit entity. We need to make money. Money is food. Money is air for us. And if we don't have that confidence, because that's the biggest battle we run, is between our ears. If we don't have that confidence and that capability of being able to be secure in where we are, we're out on the street making decisions, that we don't even know what our numbers are, or we run into a crisis, we're going to be begging people to buy us or do something, bail us out. MAP gives you that roadmap. MAP gives you that clarity to be able to be certain to the best as we can be certain with certain things. And then how do we evolve as a team that works and be able to scale and grow, and be on the same page, rowing the same way, having our oars all in the water, and being able to ferret out those people who are slacking.
Steve, thank you so much. Really appreciate you sharing your time and wisdom, and congratulations on winning the MAP Presidential Award. Where can folks go to learn more about Vanderbilt Financial Group or you and the books you've written?
So Pitchology.ai is all about my books. SteveDistante.com is me, and then VanderbiltFinancialGroup.com is also our company. So you can see us on all social media, and just have a lot of fun doing what we're doing. It's actually turning funner by the day. And once this ESOP kicks off, oh my gosh, we're going to have a bunch of raving fans from our employees, who will then be employee owners. And my vision for the firm is to keep the people we have and utilize technology in order to scale the company for the future. So then they get wealthier as opposed to people getting, thrown out because we found technology that can do it. So, I just go on and on about how amazing it is to have MAP in our lives.
Well, thank you, and congrats again. It's a shame we ran out of time, because I have like 1,000 more questions about your AI clone, how you guys were using the Philippines before everybody else. You have a million things you're doing, and I'm super interested. But Steve, thanks so much, and we appreciate your time. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you next time.